And then, of course, there's the customer. The one who called Sarah useless. At first glance, it seemed like an isolated incident, a frustrated individual letting off steam. But when you start digging into the customer's recent history, things get a little murkier. This particular customer had a reputation for being difficult. It wasn't the first time they had thrown a tantrum in a store, demanding unreasonable levels of service and acting as if they were entitled to special treatment. But what if this customer's behavior wasn't random? What if they knew something about Sarah, Jason, or even Greg that no one else did? Was there a deeper connection between the customer and one of the employees, something that had been hidden from everyone else? Could it be that the customer's anger was fueled by something personal? Perhaps a vendetta, or a past encounter that left them feeling wronged? The more you think about it, the more the lines between customer and employee start to blur, and the possibility of a hidden agenda becomes harder to ignore. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, there are still so many unanswered questions. What exactly happened in the days leading up to the confrontation? Did Sarah's recent stress have anything to do with the customer's explosive reaction? Was Jason's apparent detachment from his co-workers a clue that he was aware of something he wasn't ready to share? And what about Greg? Could the tension between him and his employees have played a role in how the situation escalated? With each passing minute, the mystery only deepens, and the more you learn, the less you seem to know. As the scene unfolds, the audience begins to feel the weight of the uncertainty hanging in the air. Every interaction, every glance, every word exchanged seems to carry an underlying tension that no one is willing to acknowledge. It's as if everyone is hiding something, and the question isn't just who is involved, but why they're involved. Why did the customer pick this moment to lash out? Why did Sarah respond the way she did? Why did Jason keep his distance, and why was Greg so quiet throughout it all? These questions linger, unanswered, like pieces of a puzzle scattered across the table, waiting for someone to put them together. But here's the catch: you might be the one who puts the puzzle pieces together. By now, the story has drawn you in. You want to know who's hiding what, why they're hiding it, and what the final reveal will be. And just when you think you're getting closer to the truth, a new twist emerges, a twist that no one saw coming. You'll be left wondering if everything you thought you knew was just a smokescreen, hiding a much deeper mystery. The answers are closer than you think, but they're buried beneath layers of deception, misunderstandings, and perhaps a few shocking secrets. The suspense is building, and the truth is just around the corner. But be warned, it won't be what you expect. The heroism you're about to witness isn't what anyone thought it would be, and the final reveal will leave you questioning your assumptions about the entire situation. So stick with me, because we're not done yet, and what happens next will change everything. As Sarah, Jason, and Greg continue to navigate the tension that's been slowly building, something else begins to unravel in the background, something neither of them had anticipated. It starts subtly, almost imperceptibly at first, but as it gathers steam, it becomes clear. This investigation into what really happened isn't going to be as easy as it seemed. And just when you think the truth is within reach, a series of unexpected obstacles emerge, pushing everyone even deeper into the mystery. For Sarah, things have become complicated in a way that feels almost deliberate. She starts digging into the recent events at the store, trying to connect the dots between the customer's outburst and the strange atmosphere she's been sensing among her colleagues. As she's going through old store records, something happens that makes her blood run cold. A key piece of evidence, a series of emails from the company's customer service department that she had saved just days before, mysteriously disappears. It's not as if she accidentally deleted them or misplaced them. No, it's as though someone had actively erased every trace of that crucial information. In a state of panic, Sarah goes to Jason, hoping that maybe he has some sort of backup or an explanation. But when she asks him about it, his reaction is odd, nervous, almost defensive, as if he knows more than he's letting on. For a moment, Sarah wonders if Jason might be involved somehow. Was he trying to protect someone, or worse, was he the one behind the missing evidence? She tries to push the thought away, but it lingers, feeding into her growing paranoia. As Sarah becomes more determined to uncover the truth, she starts facing even more resistance. It's not just the missing records or Jason's strange behavior. There's something or someone actively trying to stop her from digging any deeper. She begins receiving anonymous warnings, subtle messages left in her locker or slipped under her door. The messages are cryptic but clear in their intent: stop looking into things. It's not your business. The more she tries to confront these warnings, the more she realizes that someone in her circle doesn't want the truth to come out. Who would go so far to try and silence her? And why? These threats only intensify her resolve, but they also start to isolate her from the people she thought she could trust. Could someone close to her be hiding something they're desperate to keep buried? Meanwhile, Greg's behavior becomes increasingly erratic. On the surface, he maintains his usual tough exterior, always checking in with the staff and overseeing the operations with his sharp eye for detail. But lately, his focus seems to be elsewhere. He's been making decisions that don't quite add up, like pushing for new store policies that benefit the company but put more strain on the employees. At first, it seemed like just another corporate move, but as Sarah observes his actions more closely, she starts to wonder if something else is going on. Maybe Greg isn't just a concerned manager. What if he's playing a much deeper game? What if his motivations aren't as pure as they seem? One night, Sarah overhears Greg speaking on the phone in his office. She can't make out the details, but the tone of his conversation raises the hair on the back of her neck. It's not the way he speaks to clients or business partners. No, this conversation feels different, almost secretive. As she listens, trying to stay hidden, she hears the name of the customer who had called her useless being mentioned. And it's not just in passing, it's like Greg and the customer have an ongoing relationship, one that goes beyond a simple transaction at the store. Could they have been in on something together? Was the customer's outburst part of a larger plan? The thought consumes Sarah. If Greg is involved in something more than what meets the eye, does that mean he's been hiding things from the entire team, including Jason? Unable to shake the feeling that she had missed something crucial, Sarah decided to make one last attempt at reaching Jessica. She dialed the number and waited, her heart racing with a strange mix of hope and dread. The phone rang, but Jessica didn't answer. Instead, an automated voice message played, but it wasn't the usual message Sarah had heard. It was different, off. It was as if someone had deliberately altered it. The message ended with a simple, chilling line: "You should have listened, Sarah. You've already made a terrible mistake." The hairs on the back of her neck stood on end. Something was terribly wrong. The words felt like a final warning, a confirmation that everything she thought she knew was slipping through her fingers. She had to get to the bottom of this. She couldn't ignore the gnawing sensation that something huge was being kept from her. In a panic, she grabbed her jacket and ran out the door, determined to find Jessica and confront her. But as she rounded the corner of her apartment building, a car pulled up, and from the tinted windows, she saw the figure of someone she least expected: Greg. It made no sense. Greg, her boss, the one who had been acting so strangely, the one who seemed to be at the center of everything, was now in the car, yet he hadn't been acting like someone who was part of the conspiracy. In fact, his strange, erratic behavior had made Sarah think he was an innocent bystander in all of this. But now, everything felt off. Why was he here, in the middle of the night, and why was he staring at her with that unreadable look in his eyes? Sarah's heart skipped a beat as he stepped out of the car, his face drawn, tired, and hollow. Before she could say anything, Greg took a deep breath and spoke in a low voice. "You don't understand. You never did. But now you have to know." His words were urgent, and there was a vulnerability in his eyes that struck Sarah like a wave. "You're part of something bigger than you can possibly imagine. And Jessica, she's the key." Sarah stood frozen, her mind racing to comprehend what he was saying. "What are you talking about? Where's Jessica?" she asked, the words coming out more desperate than she intended. Greg shook his head, the weight of the truth seeming to crash down on him. "Jessica's not who you think she is. She never was. She's been playing you from the start. She's been keeping you in the dark, leading you down a path that's not just dangerous, it's a trap." The words hit Sarah like a ton of bricks, but they didn't make sense. Jessica had been her closest friend throughout all of this. They had spent hours talking, brainstorming, working together to uncover the truth. How could she be a part of whatever this was? How could she be deceiving Sarah all along? As Sarah struggled to process Greg's words, he continued, "You think this is about the store? About the customer calling the staff useless? It's not. It's about something much more. You were never supposed to uncover what's really going on, Sarah. And Jessica, she's been watching you, manipulating everything, getting close to you for a reason. It was never about the store or the customer. It's about what's hidden beneath it all. Greg's words felt like the ground was shaking beneath her feet. The world she had been so sure of, the people she thought she could trust, was crumbling in an instant. Everything had been a lie. But then, as Greg's confession hung in the air, something caught Sarah's eye. Through the darkened window of the car, she saw a flash of movement, another figure, one that wasn't Greg. Someone was sitting in the back seat, someone she didn't recognize. Without warning, the figure leaned forward, and in the dim light, Sarah could make out their face. It was Jessica. But she wasn't the same Jessica Sarah knew. Her eyes were cold, calculating, devoid of any warmth. This was a completely different person, someone who looked like they had been waiting for Sarah to catch on. Sarah's blood ran cold as Jessica's lips curled into a small, sinister smile. "I told you not to trust anyone," she said, her voice flat and emotionless. "Now, you've learned the hard way." Sarah's mind reeled. Jessica, the one person she thought was her ally, had been playing her from the very beginning. The realization hit Sarah like a slap in the face. Everything she had seen, every clue she had uncovered, had been orchestrated to lead her to this moment. Jessica wasn't just a co-worker, a friend, or a victim of some larger conspiracy, she was the mastermind. She had been pulling the strings all along. The weight of this revelation was almost too much to bear. How could Sarah have been so blind? How had she missed the signs, the subtle manipulations? But it was all clear now. The strange behaviors, the messages, the cryptic conversations, it had all been leading her down a path designed to keep her in the dark, to make her believe she was in control when in reality, she had been a pawn in Jessica's game. Greg looked at Sarah, his eyes filled with a mixture of pity and regret. "You have to understand, Sarah. I didn't want this for you. I tried to stop her, but she's too far gone. You need to get out of here. Before it's too late." Sarah stood there, completely paralyzed, as the realization of what was happening began to sink in. The entire mystery, the conspiracy she thought she was unraveling, was nothing more than a well-crafted illusion. And the person she had trusted most had betrayed her in the worst way possible. As the weight of the truth pressed down on her, she knew one thing for certain: there was no way out. She was already too deep into something far darker than she had ever imagined. And as Jessica's cold smile widened in the backseat of the car, Sarah understood that the real game had just begun. The chill in the air felt heavier as Sarah stood there, frozen in place, her mind racing to comprehend the reality of what she had just learned. Jessica, the one person she thought she could trust above all others, was the mastermind behind everything. The shock of it left her breathless. Her legs trembled, her hands shaking uncontrollably as the gravity of the situation settled in. Every moment of friendship, every secret shared, every hour spent planning and strategizing, it had all been a lie. The image of Jessica in the backseat of that car, her cold smile mocking Sarah's every move, haunted her. There was no turning back now. She had been caught in something far beyond her comprehension, and now the stakes had risen beyond anything she could have anticipated. Greg's voice pulled her out of her spiraling thoughts, his words urgent and heavy. "You have to make a choice, Sarah. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about everyone you care about. I'm trying to help you, but I don't have much time. Jessica's not just playing you, she's playing everyone. And she's going to do whatever it takes to protect what she's built." His eyes were filled with desperation, as if he knew the weight of what he was asking her to do, but also the dangerous path it would lead her down. The air between them was thick with unspoken fear. He wasn't asking her to walk away. He was telling her that if she didn't act, if she didn't confront the truth, there would be no one left to protect. Jessica's just the face of it, but there are people, powerful people, pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Before Sarah could process his words, the unmistakable sound of footsteps echoed from across the room. She whirled around to find Jessica standing there, her presence almost predatory as she stepped out of the shadows, her gaze fixed directly on Sarah. The cold smile from before was gone, replaced by something darker, more calculating. You've been digging where you shouldn't, Jessica said, her voice dripping with disdain. Did you really think you could get to the truth without consequences? You were never meant to uncover this. And now, you're here, just like I knew you would be. But you won't leave, Sarah. No one ever does. A sickening realization crept over Sarah. Jessica's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was part of something far bigger than anything she could have imagined. This wasn't just about her life, or the store, or some petty corporate feud. This was about something vast, something dangerous, an entire network that had been operating in the shadows, manipulating everything. Everyone she knew, everyone she trusted, had been part of it, or at least had turned a blind eye to it. Greg stepped back, his expression unreadable. She's right, he said, his voice barely audible. You're in way over your head now. This isn't just some conspiracy about the store or the customers. It's about a system that's been controlling things for decades. And you've unknowingly become a part of it. Sarah's heart raced. What do you mean? Who is behind all of this? What is this system? Jessica's smile widened, as if she were enjoying the confusion in Sarah's eyes. You don't get it, do you? You never will. The people who run this system are untouchable. You think your boss, your co-workers, even the customers at the store were just random pieces in this game? They weren't. They were all part of the plan. And now, you've dug yourself into a hole you can't climb out of. You're nothing more than a pawn in a much larger game. The words hit Sarah like a ton of bricks. All the hours spent following leads, all the late nights trying to make sense of the messages, the clues, it had all been leading to this moment. A moment where she realized she had been playing right into their hands. She wasn't just up against Jessica. She wasn't just up against the mysterious forces manipulating her life. She was up against a system that had embedded itself so deeply into society, so deeply into everything she had ever known, that she could no longer tell who the enemy really was. The lines between allies and enemies had blurred beyond recognition. Her mind whirled. Why me? She asked, almost pleading for an answer, though she already knew she wasn't going to like it. Why involve me in this? What did I ever do to deserve this? Jessica's eyes gleamed, almost pityingly. It's not about what you did. It's about what you could do. You're smart, Sarah. You see things that most people don't. You were always going to figure it out, and we needed you to. We needed someone who could see beyond the surface, someone who could uncover the cracks in the system. And now, you've uncovered enough to become a threat. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the full scope of the conspiracy started to take shape. This wasn't just about money or power, this was about control, manipulation on a scale that was incomprehensible. The system Jessica spoke of was everywhere, hidden in plain sight, in every corner of society. The store, the customers, even the people Sarah had trusted, had all been part of a web so vast and far-reaching that she had no idea who, if anyone, could be trusted. Who else is involved? Sarah asked, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to sound confident. Who else has been lying to me? Jessica's lips curled into a knowing smile, and Sarah's heart sank as she saw the truth in Jessica's eyes. It's everyone. Every person who's ever worked for the company, every person who's ever been a part of the system, every single person who's ever turned a blind eye, they're all connected. You were never meant to find out, but now that you have, there's no going back. They'll come for you. And when they do, there will be no one left to help you. A sickening realization twisted in Sarah's gut. This wasn't just about her. She wasn't the only one at risk here. Everyone she had ever known was somehow tangled up in this vast conspiracy. The stakes had escalated beyond anything she could have prepared for. And as Jessica's words sank in, the question burned in Sarah's mind, could she even trust Greg now? Before she could ask, a loud noise shattered the air, and Sarah's eyes widened as she saw several figures emerge from the shadows, all wearing dark clothing and moving with unsettling precision. They were closing in on her, and Sarah knew in that moment that there was no escape. The truth had never been more dangerous. The tension in the warehouse had reached a boiling point, and Sarah could feel every muscle in her body coiled tight, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. The shadows seemed to close in on her, each one darker than the last. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her mind racing to make sense of the chaos unfolding around her. The figures surrounding her were closing in, their faces hidden, their movements deliberate and ominous. Jessica stood at the forefront, her eyes locked onto Sarah's with an expression that mixed pity and something far more sinister. The truth was finally within her grasp, and yet the closer she got to it, the more it felt like it was slipping further away. "You think you can stop this?" Jessica's voice was a soft whisper, almost mocking, as she took a slow step forward. "You think you can break a system that's been in place for decades? You've already lost, Sarah. The moment you started digging, you sealed your fate. No one can save you now." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, the fear creeping up her spine, but there was something else building inside her, a fire, a defiance that she hadn't realized was there. She had been used, manipulated, twisted into this corner, but she wasn't going to go down without a fight. Not now. Not when she had come so far. She had uncovered the truth, piece by painful piece, and there was no way she was going to let it slip through her fingers now. "You think I'm afraid of you?" Sarah's voice rang out, steady despite the chaos swirling around her. "You're wrong. You and your so-called system are nothing but a house of cards. And it's about to fall." Jessica's smile widened, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes, almost as if Sarah had said something that struck a chord with her. The figures around them shifted, their attention momentarily diverted, and in that moment, Sarah made a split-second decision. She had been running from the truth, from the danger, from everything that had been forced upon her, but now she saw clearly. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone who had been unknowingly swept into this web of lies. This wasn't just her battle, it was everyone's. In a flash, she turned and sprinted toward the nearest exit, her feet pounding against the cold concrete floor. The figures reacted instantly, but the surprise was enough to give her a split-second lead. Her pulse raced as she ran, her mind focused on one thing: getting out. Getting to safety. But as she neared the door, she was yanked back by a strong hand. She twisted, desperate to break free, but it was no use. She was trapped. Jessica's voice cut through the chaos, smooth as ever. "You really thought you could just walk away, Sarah? You don't get it, do you? This isn't just about a job or some petty rivalry. This is about control. You're just a piece in a game that's been in motion for far longer than you know." Sarah's breath caught in her throat as Jessica's words sank in. The betrayal. The manipulation. It wasn't just her being used, it was everyone. Her friends. Her family. Every person she had ever known had been affected by this shadowy network. The system Jessica spoke of was bigger than any of them could have imagined. And now Sarah realized she wasn't just a victim in this game. She was the key to bringing it all down. "Not anymore," Sarah said, her voice breaking through the fog of fear. "I'm done playing your game." With every ounce of strength she could muster, Sarah twisted free from Jessica's grip, shoving her away with everything she had. Jessica stumbled back, but she didn't fall. Instead, she stood there, her expression turning cold, calculating. The moment felt frozen in time. The tension in the air was palpable, and Sarah knew this was the moment that would decide everything. "I won't let you ruin everything," Jessica spat, her eyes narrowing. "You think you're the hero in this story? You're nothing but a pawn. And you'll never escape what's coming next." But Sarah wasn't listening anymore. She was done being afraid. The fear that had kept her shackled for so long was gone, replaced by a sense of purpose that burned brighter than anything she had ever felt. She had to finish this. No more running. No more hiding. This was the final showdown, and she wasn't going to back down. In the distance, the sound of sirens began to wail, distant but growing louder. It was a small chance, but a chance nonetheless. Sarah's eyes flickered to the back of the warehouse, where a hidden exit lay just beyond a stack of crates. If she could make it there, if she could just get outside and into the light, she might be able to turn the tables once and for all. But as she moved toward it, the unexpected happened. The door flew open, and a figure stepped through. Sarah's heart sank as she recognized the person who had just entered the room. It was Greg. But his face was different now. Cold. Unfamiliar. His eyes locked onto her with a chilling intensity that made her stomach twist. "You," Sarah gasped, taking an instinctive step back. You were working with her all along, weren't you? This was all part of your plan. Greg didn't answer. He just stood there, a blank look on his face as he slowly, deliberately, pulled something from his jacket, a gun. The air seemed to freeze, the tension ratcheting up in a way that made Sarah's chest tighten with panic. This isn't what you think, Sarah, Greg said, his voice low and steady. You have no idea how deep this goes. No one does. But you're about to find out the hard way. Time seemed to slow as Sarah stared at him, the reality of the situation crashing over her like a wave. She had trusted him. Believed in him. And now, in this moment, he was no different than Jessica, no different than the people who had used her from the start. Her mind raced, but there was no time for hesitation. The sirens were closer now, too close for comfort. She had one shot, one chance to turn the tables and get out of this alive. Without thinking, she lunged at Greg, knocking the gun from his hand with a force she didn't know she had. The sound of it clattering to the floor echoed in the stillness of the warehouse. For a split second, everything stopped. Jessica's eyes widened with disbelief, and Greg took a step back, his hand still hovering in the air as if unsure what had just happened. Sarah didn't wait. She bolted for the door, her heart pounding in her chest, adrenaline surging through her veins. She could hear footsteps behind her, but she didn't look back. She couldn't afford to. Just as she reached the exit, the warehouse door flew open once more. A bright light flooded the space, and Sarah barely registered the shapes of uniformed officers as they rushed inside. Her breath caught in her throat as she stumbled toward them, her legs shaking with exhaustion, her mind spinning with the realization of what had just happened. They had come. The truth had finally reached the surface, and there was no more running from it. But as Sarah turned to look back one last time, she caught a fleeting glimpse of Jessica and Greg disappearing into the shadows. The conspiracy wasn't over. It was just beginning. And in that moment, Sarah understood that the battle for the truth was far from finished. Days passed, but the echoes of that night still lingered in Sarah's mind, like a faint, almost imperceptible hum in the back of her thoughts. The officers had come just in time, securing the warehouse and taking Jessica, Greg, and the others into custody. The relief that had washed over her as she walked out of that place, blinking in the harsh daylight, was almost overwhelming, but it didn't last. It couldn't. The truth, the real truth, was still out there, and it haunted her every waking moment. The story of the conspiracy had unraveled in ways she never expected, pulling back layers of corruption, manipulation, and deceit that extended far beyond her small world. Everything she thought she knew, everything she thought was safe, had been a lie. But in the aftermath of the chaos, Sarah was left with a question that had no clear answer. What now? She found herself back at her apartment late one evening, staring out the window, watching the world go by. The city outside was bustling, alive with energy, but inside, she felt disconnected, like a part of her had been left behind in the depths of that warehouse, trapped in the tangled web of lies that had almost consumed her. The case was closed, the conspiracy dismantled, but something inside her kept pulling her toward the unanswered questions. The truth she uncovered wasn't the end, it was just the beginning of something far larger. Her phone buzzed, a message from her old boss, John, who had reached out to express his relief that she was safe, that the company would try to rebuild in the wake of the scandal. His words were polite, almost too polite, but they didn't bring the comfort she'd expected. Sarah had become a pawn in a much bigger game, and as much as she wanted to close the chapter on everything that had happened, it was clear that the story wasn't over. She had been part of something massive, something that stretched beyond the confines of her small town and deep into the heart of a system that, despite everything, still existed. There was no way to walk away from it without leaving a part of herself behind. As she sat there, lost in her thoughts, there was a knock on the door. Sarah's heart skipped a beat, and she stood slowly, her instincts on high alert. The last time she had seen Jessica, she had been caught in the act of trying to keep her silent, trying to erase all traces of the truth. What could she possibly want now? Was this some final twist, some last attempt to pull her back into the game? Or was there something else at play? "You're not going to believe me," Jessica continued, her voice shaky. "But when I say I was part of something that was bigger than both of us, I mean it. I thought I had control, thought I could manage it, but it got out of hand. I never meant for you to get dragged into this, Sarah. But you're the only one who could expose it. And now, they're after you. Sarah swallowed, her heart racing as the weight of Jessica's words settled in. She could feel the tension rising in the room, but this wasn't just about the conspiracy anymore. It was about the realization that no matter what she did, the pieces of the puzzle were never going to fit neatly together. There would always be more to uncover, more to question. The people behind everything, the ones who had been pulling the strings, weren't just going to vanish because the warehouse had been raided. They were out there, watching, waiting for the next move. "Why should I believe anything you say?" Sarah asked, her voice steady but laced with bitterness. Jessica's expression softened. "Because I'm not the enemy anymore, Sarah. You are. And that's what they want, someone who can keep you in line, who can control you. But I can help you. You have to trust me." She paused, her eyes flickering with something almost like fear. "I don't know how long I have, but they won't stop. Not now. Not after everything that's happened." Sarah stared at her for a long time, weighing her options. The room felt too small, the walls closing in as the gravity of everything she had just heard began to sink in. She was right. Jessica was right, they weren't done. The system, the conspiracy, the people behind it all, were still out there, and Sarah had become a part of something far bigger than herself. "Why are you telling me this now?" Sarah finally asked, her voice quieter, less defensive. Jessica's gaze dropped, and for a brief moment, Sarah saw the flicker of someone who was, in the end, just as human as she was. "Because I'm done running. And you don't have to do this alone." She looked up, locking eyes with Sarah, a silent plea in her expression. "The choice is yours, Sarah. You can walk away, let it all go, and live your life. Or you can keep going, dig deeper, and maybe, just maybe, stop this once and for all." The words hung in the air, the weight of them pressing down on Sarah like a ton of bricks. There was no easy answer, no clear path forward. The truth was messy, complex, and it would never be fully resolved. But as Sarah stood there, the pieces finally falling into place in her mind, she realized something. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. The real challenge wasn't just about uncovering secrets or exposing lies, it was about what she did with the truth once she had it. As Jessica stepped back into the shadows of the hallway, leaving Sarah standing at the threshold, the door cracked open just enough for Sarah to glimpse what lay beyond it. The truth was a powerful thing. It could heal. It could destroy. And in that moment, Sarah knew one thing for sure: whatever happened next, she would never be the same. The mystery wasn't finished, it was only getting started. And as the door clicked shut, the world outside continued on, unaware of the storm that was still brewing, just waiting for the right moment to break free.